Right, so today I want to talk about electric cars, specifically why I think they are not the solution. Now, don't get me wrong, I like the idea of electric cars. The concept is very good. The fact that you can have a car that starts up, doesn't make a racket. The fact, because I've been woken up before in the morning, at 2 or 3 in the morning, of someone driving in their car with a stupidly loud exhaust, and it wakes you up. And it's nice, don't get me wrong, in the morning or in the night, if you're driving around, it's absolutely silent. Same on the motorway, highway, whatever you want to call it. I get it, I understand it. And the principle of an electric motor means less moving parts, therefore theoretically it should cost less to service, and therefore it shouldn't be as complicated, for the owner of the car, for the driver. But here are the reasons why I don't think it's going to work in the UK and possibly other European countries as well. So I'll start off with the cost. Yes, the cost is going down and it will reduce, but it's still a lot of money for an electric car. And whilst cars like the Tesla Model 3 have brought the price down, it's still a lot of money. It's still like a nicely spec'd 3 Series or C-Class or Audi A4. And I mean, it's a good car, but it does not have the levels of refinement or quality, interior quality that's comparable to the likes of A4, C-Class or 3 Series. So that's the first thing. You've also got the actual mass of the vehicle, which I don't know if you know this, but electric cars are ridiculously heavy, and it's not the case of it doesn't matter, because it does. If it comes to, I know it's quite niche, but handling, they will not handle, and they just don't handle as it stands now anything like a normal car, because of the way the batteries are. They're at the bottom. You've got a layer, and then the batteries at the bottom, and there's a lot of mass at the bottom of the car. And what you notice a lot of electric cars is they're quite big, not in terms of width or length, but in terms of the actual footprint, like the height, let's say. So even the saloons, they're a lot taller than what a normal saloon would be. So there's that. In terms of the actual speed of charging those batteries, yes, you've got superchargers, but the infrastructure, I think, is really poor unless you have a Tesla. Again, Tesla have nailed it on with this one. They got the supercharging network, and from what I hear, it works very well. However, if you don't have a Tesla, these companies, the big manufacturers, well, they are but other big manufacturers, they're making electric cars. You're left with the other companies that are around, like Ecotricity or something, where it's not that easy. There's different types. There's like a type 1 or type 2 connector. You have to know which connector you got, make sure you got the cable with you. Sometimes you go to the machines and they charge a ridiculous rate, which costs more than it would cost if you were to fill up a economical diesel car. So actually do the same 100-mile journey would actually cost more. You have to have like a card or like a mobile app. You have to get that app signed up. Sometimes these stations are down, and the problem is it's not like a petrol station where there's a dime a dozen. There's hundreds of petrol stations around. What you find with electric charging stations is in some areas you won't find another one in 20-30 miles at least, if not more. And don't get me wrong, 20-30 miles, it doesn't sound like a lot, but for a lot of electric cars, it's pretty much anywhere 10 to 20% of the range, if not more. So if you were down to that last, 10, 20, anything less than a quarter of a tank, you will be, you will be touching cloth, put it that way. But it's in terms of the actual charging, it's just not as quick as filling up a tank of petrol or diesel. And I know we should encourage, new technology, things that are good for the environment. However, currently as it stands, electricity, where it's coming from, it's coal, and it's not from renewable energy resources. Whereas with, hopefully in the future that will change, but as it stands, not really beneficial. And then it comes down to the batteries, where the battery is made from, the metals that are made in the batteries. I'm pretty sure you have to mine some thousands of miles away, and everything's not done in one place. is shipped over all across the world, different parts. Things are mined, shipped over. The manufacturing process it consumes so much energy that if you actually look into it, it's probably better to just have your petrol or diesel car, a modern day, bearing in mind modern day one. And then there's the how long the actual batteries will last for. So, I mean, manufacturers say different things, but they're saying about 10 years. And I don't know about you, I mean, I do understand a lot of people like new cars and they want to keep up to date. And for them, that's not a problem. But in the used market, if you look out, there's quite a few cars that are older than 10 years. And if they're giving a max range of lifespan of 10 years, some will go wrong at 7, 8 years. And I don't know about you, but there's plenty of cars out there that you could buy that 7, 8 or 10 years old that are less than you could buy cars that that still work. They're still drivable. They're not, there's not a shed. It's not like a rotting piece of so and so. They work. They're functional. And if you're telling me, hang on, this car you've bought is going to be a metal piece of junk, it's going to require a new battery pack, and these new battery packs cost anywhere between 20 to 30 grand. So it's a bit like, well, that's new car time. Whereas with a car, an engine won't just suddenly fail. Very rarely. There are 1 or 2 cars out there with a problem, as another video. Engines will not just suddenly fail. If you change the oil and you keep on top of the basic maintenance, they won't fail. And even if you do have to replace the engine in a lot of basic cars, it might only cost you 3 or 4 grand. I say only, comparable to 20, 30 grand with a battery pack. Not so much. So there's that. Also, safety concerns. I'm concerned with accidents. I mean, it's not a nice thing to talk about, but a lot of people, you get involved in a car accident at some point in your life. And when you have a normal car accident with a combustion engine car, you don't usually have a fire. Usually. But with electric cars, there's a very, very high chance of having a fire. And the metals they use, the way they react, mean that the fire that's produced actually is very hard to put out. It's not like a normal fire. Like, for instance, if petrol's burning, you can put out a petrol fire relatively easily. I think it's aluminium, certain aluminium compounds. If they catch fire, they are incredibly difficult to put out. So you have to be very careful with that. And I think, is it nickel? I can't remember the exact metals, but I remember looking up, researching it, and there's videos on the internet of electric cars in collisions, and they lead to massive fires, huge fires, and that's a safety concern for the occupants of the vehicle, surrounding drivers, and also the fire service. So that is also a concern. I mean, personally for me, sound is a big issue because I might be a bit old school with this. I like my V8s and V10s and V12s, so I like the sound of a vehicle, and it doesn't matter if they make a supercar that's electric, it needs to sound like a supercar. I'm sorry, but sound is such a big piece of what makes a sports car a supercar. If you take that away, that's like taking, it's like if you have like fish and chips and saying to them, oh, we haven't actually battered the cod, it's just fish. It's like, well, no, the whole point is you batter the cod and you have chips. There's not all like you fish and chips cold. It's like, no, I want it hot. Like, yes, you got those 2 elements of the fish and the chips, but that third element of it being hot or it being battered isn't there, then it just takes away from it. So personally, I think sound's really important. Again, a lot of people probably won't care, so that's a minor one. Biggest issue for me is how people are going to charge them in the UK. There aren't loads and loads of charging stations, and when you go up to some of these charging stations, they're out of service. So what does that leave you with? Charging at home. Now in the US and in Canada and maybe other countries in the world, a lot of people have driveways, and they're able to charge all their office, workplace. They'll have plenty of charging stations. In the UK, a majority of people do not have driveways. They park, just on street parking. They'll be lucky if they have a driveway, and for a lot of them, they won't be able to park right outside their house. So, in terms of charging the car overnight, unless they introduce a system where all the lampposts, or along all the lampposts across the road, they have charging stations. But then, if you look at the average road of, semi-detached or terraced houses, there will be at least 15, 20 cars, if not more, on each side. And I don't know about you, but I don't think they can actually put 15, 20 chargers on each side of the road. A, it will be an ungainly sight. B, I think logistically and the science behind it, I think that would be really tough to get that done. And also, it's open to vandalism. You look at bus stops, you look at things like that, and the amount of times you see bus stops and other things being vandalised and stuff. People will just, rip them, tear them apart, just general vandalism, and that is a concern. Because what you don't want to wake up one morning and find someone, saying something minor like they've unplugged the charger. Well, if they unplug the charger somehow, then how do you get to work? Let's say it's only been charged for an hour and it's got 20 miles of range. Your work's 40 miles away. What are you going to do then? Ring up your boss and say, sorry, I can't come in, someone's unplugged my charger. It's not practical. And my last issue is to do with the range. They advertise 200 miles, but then you probably only get about 160, 170. And you might say, well, that's the same with a petrol and diesel car. Yes, but you can easily fill up. But the problem is that with the electric cars, their range goes down so much in the winter. So you've got to think about, you've got heated windscreens, you've got heated steering wheels, heated seats, all the technology, all the gizmos, gadgets, everything. It all consumes a lot of energy. And I just find that, you'll find that range drop in the winter months. And even when it comes to stuff like using the air conditioning, and also just driving in general, what you'll find is that these electric cars are actually most efficient around town. Whereas before, with combustion engines, it was, they're most, they have the highest percentage efficiency at sort of highway, motorway speeds at anywhere 50, 60 miles an hour. That's the sort of optimum level, whereas with electric cars, the opposite. They actually consume more at 60 miles an hour than they would at, let's say, 20 or 30 pottering around town, because you get regenerative braking. Now, don't get me wrong, I like the idea of electric cars. I think it is exciting, it is interesting, a nice peaceful way of commuting, but I do think certain areas of the automotive world do not, they don't need this electrification. They need to get the infrastructure right. Once they got that right, then I think they can plough on, go through this whole, turning your average day hatchback, your average day saloon car into electric cars, which I have no problem with. It's just, when it comes to the special cars like the sports cars and other, that's when I start thinking to myself, well, hot hatches, I don't want an electric hot hatch, I want a petrol one. Same with sports car, I want a petrol one. And that's another topic on its own, but that's my main, those are my main points. Tell me what you think, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.